They say you remember exactly where you were when your life changes forever. For me, it was aisle 14 at Martin's Hardware, between the light bulbs and the duct tape. I was comparing two nearly identical socket wrench sets when my phone buzzed in my back pocket. I only remember that because it startled me enough to drop the heavier set on my foot. "Logan, it's me," Ashley said. Her voice was low, hushed, like she was calling from the inside of a confessional. Now, this was weird. My wife rarely called me in the middle of a workday, let alone with a voice that sounded like she was trying not to be overheard by the walls. "Everything okay?" I asked, already bracing for bad news, car trouble, sick dog. Maybe her mother was visiting again. "We need to talk," she said. Now those 4 words don't just slap. They grab you by the collar and shake something loose in your spine. "Sure," I said. "You want to meet for dinner?" There was a long pause. "Yeah, dinner sounds good." Click. No goodbye. No, love you. Just the kind of silence you could pour into a grave. I spent the rest of the day trying not to spiral. Justified paranoia, unprovoked anxiety, whatever you want to call it, I had it. By the time I pulled into the restaurant she picked, I'd already imagined everything from a surprise pregnancy to a cancer diagnosis. What I didn't imagine was exactly what was waiting inside. Because that night didn't just change me. It rewired me. And not with some grand, operatic betrayal, no. It started subtle, like a hairline fracture in a foundation that's already sinking. I walked in, expecting a two-top, maybe dim lighting, one of those slightly overpriced places where everyone pretends to be happy about paying $19 for a salad. Instead, I spotted her across the room, sitting at a table set for 3. With him. He wore a black shirt that hugged his torso like it owed him money. Clean-shaven. Perfect teeth. One of those smiles you just know he practices in the mirror. Chase Donovan. The name alone made my jaw tighten. I'd heard it a dozen times before. Her colleague. Her mentor. Her creative partner on the Larson pitch. Apparently, he was also her dinner companion tonight. Ashley looked up and waved, like this was all perfectly normal. "Logan," she chirped. "Over here." And I walked straight into a performance. I should have walked out. Not in a storm-off, throw my napkin down kind of way. No, just a quiet about face. A silent refusal to play whatever game was about to unfold. But I didn't. I walked over, shook the man's hand like some poor idiot auditioning for the role of husband number 1. And I sat down across from them, trying not to look at the way her chair angled a little too close to his. "This is Chase," Ashley said, like she was introducing a neighbor, not the man I'd heard her giggle about after Zoom meetings. "You've heard me mention him." I had. Too often. "He's brilliant," she'd say. "He just gets me." He said something the other day that made me think about my life in a whole new way. Yeah, I'd heard of Chase. He extended his hand. "Logan, man. Finally, good to meet you. Ash talks about you all the time." Ash. Not Ashley. Not even babe or hon, which she loathed unless she was using it sarcastically with me. But Ash. Like they were old college sweethearts who shared a mixtape and a futon. "Pleasure," I said. My fingers barely touched his. They were soft. Moisturized. Not a working man's handshake, not by a long shot. Then we sat. Me on one side of the table. Them, unintentionally or very intentionally on the other. The server came by and poured wine. Only one glass. Chase's. Ashley had already ordered for herself. A move she only pulled when she was trying to look in control. "We just started talking about that Italy trip," she said casually. "Trip?" I blinked. "Oh, it's just a maybe," she added quickly. "For work. If the Larson account goes international, Chase and I might fly out for the launch." "For work," I echoed. "Of course." Chase chuckled like I'd told a joke. "Logan, man, you gotta come too. Unless you're not the jealous type." Ashley actually laughed at that. Full laugh. Teeth and all. And there it was. A ripple in the water. A signal in the static. This wasn't dinner. This was the setup. The preamble. The soft open to a story she had rehearsed, down to the napkins folded like little pyramids. "So," I said, leaning forward. "What are we celebrating?" Neither of them answered right away. Then Chase, ever the showman, tipped his wine glass toward me like a toast. "We're celebrating clarity." "And Ashley?" She just smiled. Chase set his glass down with a casual clink, like he'd just delivered a profound line in a bad indie film. "We're celebrating clarity," he repeated. Ashley rested her chin on her hand, smiling at him like he just taught her a new language. I sat there, blinking slow and steady, trying to keep my breathing even. And then he did it. Chase leaned forward, elbows on the table like we were old buddies swapping life updates over beer, and said, "I'll make this simple, Logan. You've got two options." His eyes locked on mine, unblinking. "Leave quietly, or face me like a man." I waited for Ashley to laugh, to roll her eyes, to say, "Chase, stop being dramatic." She didn't. She placed her hand lightly on his arm, like a punctuation mark, like an answer. I think my brain stopped producing sound for a second. You know that thing where the world goes quiet except for the sound of your own pulse? Yeah, that. "Leave quietly, or face me like a man." He thought I'd crawl, that I'd shake his hand again and wish them well. Maybe even leave a tip for the server before walking out like some noble idiot in a Hallmark movie. Instead, I did what any man would do when years of suspicion, denial, and loyalty are thrown on the table like a losing hand. I smiled. One of those cold, tight-lipped, dead smiles. And I stood. "Logan, stop," Ashley said sharply, just loud enough for our corner of the restaurant to hear. But I didn't raise my voice. I didn't curse. I leaned in until my words landed directly in Chase's smug little smirk. "You want your teeth whole or in pieces?" His eyes twitched, just slightly. And then I did exactly what he didn't expect. I stepped back and walked away. Not because I was afraid, but because the worst thing I could do in that moment, worse than a punch, worse than yelling, was let him think he'd won too easily. No, I had other plans. I went straight home. The house felt off. Not just empty, rearranged. Like the air itself had been scrubbed with someone else's cologne. Her perfume still lingered in the hallway, but now I noticed something else. Something masculine. Something arrogant. I walked into our bedroom. The bed was made. Perfectly. Tight corners, like a hotel. Ashley hadn't made the bed in months. I sat down, slow. Palms still raw from clenching the table. Heart calm. Mind sharp. I didn't need to guess anymore. I needed evidence. I needed the kind of truth you could hold in your hands. I started in the closet. Not because I thought there'd be a smoking gun nestled between sweaters and shoe boxes, but because closets tell stories. You just have to know how to listen. Her side had always been a battlefield of half-folded cardigans and the occasional lost sandal. But tonight, it looked like someone had staged a department store display. Shoes lined up like soldiers. Dresses on matching velvet hangers. And sitting center stage on the top shelf? A pair of heels. Red. Expensive. The kind of heels she never wore around me. Ashley had bad ankles. Said heels were a young woman's game. I used to nod, thinking age had brought her wisdom. Apparently, it had just brought someone else. I pulled them down, turned them over in my hands. The soles were scuffed, recently worn, and yet I'd never seen them leave this house. I set them down slowly. Next stop, her vanity. Ashley wasn't big on tech, but she had a tablet she used for work, mostly client notes, Pinterest boards, and that one game with Candy I could never quite beat her at. It wasn't password protected. She never thought I'd look. She was right. I never had. Until now. The screen lit up like it had been waiting for me. A wall of open tabs, blurred thumbnails. I tapped one. The image loaded slowly. Hotel room mirror. Bright lighting. Her, standing in front of it in something new. Barely dressed. Hair pinned up. Eyes confident. I stared. Not because it shocked me, but because of the timestamp in the corner, last weekend. She told me she was at Lacey's baby shower in Sacramento. I remember helping her pick out the gift. Those tiny booties and a bottle of organic lotion that smelled like lavender and lies. I even helped wrap it. She said she'd be back late Sunday. And she was. Hair mussed, clothes wrinkled, holding a fake smile and the scent of hotel soap that didn't match Lacey's house. I tapped right. More photos. Different poses. One with her fingers curled into the sheets like she was bracing for a storm. Then a video. I didn't play it. Didn't need to. Some truths don't need soundtracks. I backed out of the gallery, swiped into her messages. One thread stood out. No name. Just a saved number with no contact ID. And no punctuation. Hotel tonight? Room 418. You looked unbelievable today. Made it hard to focus. My girl's got fire in her eyes. When's your next girls' night? Each message hit like a pinprick. Nothing explicit. Nothing criminal. But everything was there between the lines. I took a breath. My stomach churned, not with pain. No, I'd already bled out. This was the aftermath. The hollowing. I looked up at our bed. Made with care. Like a stage prepared for its final scene. Downstairs, I poured myself a drink. Something cheap. Something that burned. My phone buzzed. Her name on the screen. Ashley. I let it ring. Let it vibrate against the wood like it had something urgent to say. Then, a text. You didn't have to do that. You embarrassed yourself. Not, are you okay? Not, I'm sorry. Just a cold verdict from a woman who used to light up when I walked into a room. I stared at the message. And I realized something right then. This wasn't just betrayal. This was choreography. She didn't stumble into infidelity. She rehearsed it, perfected it, timed the beats like a showrunner planning a season finale. That dinner with Chase? That wasn't the beginning. That was curtain call. I pulled out the manila folder I kept tucked in my office drawer. It wasn't labeled. Nothing dramatic. Just a simple tab filled with receipts I never wanted to believe I'd use. Printed emails. A hotel reservation with her email listed as alternate contact. A credit card statement showing wine bar purchases in neighborhoods she didn't even like. And one very specific photo from a coworker's Instagram story, Ashley, blurry in the background, seated across from a man who looked suspiciously like Chase, mid-laugh, mid-seduction, mid-lie. I told myself it didn't matter, that it was all circumstantial. But that was back when I wanted to believe in us more than I wanted the truth. No, I wanted the truth dressed in neon, screaming in my face. So I stayed up. Didn't sleep. Didn't rage. Just planned. Not revenge. Not yet. I wasn't some wild-eyed vigilante. But I was a man who just watched his life get rewritten by someone who forgot I could read between the lines. Ashley underestimated me. She thought I'd break. That I'd crawl into the background while she rode off with her new leading man. But she forgot something. I don't do exits. I do encores. There's something strange that happens when betrayal finishes what it started. Not the shattering part, that's loud, fast, full of shock, but the quiet after. That cold, clear moment when you stop bleeding and start building. That's where I was. Alone, sitting in my office at 2:14 a.m., staring at a manila folder and a glass of warm bourbon, planning something no man should have to plan. A tactical response to a broken vow. This wasn't revenge. Not yet. This was reconnaissance. First thing I did was buy a burner phone. No one ever thinks they'll be the one paying in cash at a gas station for a cheap Nokia with preloaded minutes and no paper trail. But there I was, humming along to classic rock at 2:45 a.m., acting like this was just another Thursday. By 3 o'clock, I had it activated and stashed in my glove box. Ashley had access to our phone records, and if she was half as calculating as I now knew she was, she'd notice if I started calling unfamiliar numbers. So I needed clean lines. I needed silence. Because the man I used to be the talk it out, let's fix this guy, he was gone. This version? He knew how to wait. First piece on the board, Chase Donovan. I knew where he worked, same firm as Ashley. Knew his title, too. Senior Project Lead. The guy wore tailored blazers and drove a leased Tesla, which, by the way, screams overcompensation louder than a Corvette with tinted windows. What I didn't know was where he lived. Yet, that changed when I dropped by his gym the next afternoon. It's amazing how talkative people get when you're friendly, forgettable, and holding a clipboard. Chase? Oh yeah, the receptionist said, twirling her pen. Comes in every morning at 6:30. Lives 2 blocks down. One of those townhouses on Jackson. I smiled. He a trainer or just another guy chasing biceps? She laughed. He likes to flirt with the trainers more than he works out. Of course he does. 2 blocks down Jackson, there it was. Sleek, overpriced, sterile. A townhouse with a Tesla parked out front like it was posing for a magazine cover. I didn't do anything that day. I just watched. Took mental notes. Patterns. Movement. Visitors. Trash bins. Because here's something people forget. If you want to know someone's secrets, don't look in their messages. Look in their routine. People are predictable. That's what makes them weak. By the end of the week, I knew Chase's whole schedule better than he did. Monday to Friday, gym. Work. Juice bar. Home. Repeat. Weekends? Usually involved Ashley. Once, I watched them leave together Saturday morning. She was wearing those same red heels. I didn't blink. Next, I looked inward. Our finances. Ashley and I shared everything. Or so I thought. What I found instead was a separate savings account she'd opened in her maiden name. Small at first, just a couple $100. Then it ballooned. Trips, gift receipts, dinner charges, all locked. All hidden in plain sight. She was prepping for something. Maybe a new life. Maybe a safety net if things went south with Loverboy. That's when I realized. She wasn't just cheating on me. She was trying to outgrow me. Replace me. Erase me. I didn't tell anyone. Not my brother. Not my coworkers, not even my closest friend Evan, the guy who helped me bury my dog and lent me money in college. Because this wasn't a story I needed to share yet. It wasn't right. I needed everyone to still believe we were the perfect couple. Power couple. Dinner party worthy. So I played my role. Came home with groceries. Kissed her cheek in public. Laughed at parties. She smiled back like nothing was wrong. Because to her, I was still asleep. Still blind. Still soft. Let her think that. Let her sleepwalk through the end of her own story. I began documenting. Not just the digital stuff. Anyone can forge a screenshot. No, I wanted undeniable evidence. Photos. Dates. Voice memos. I planted a mic in the living room, a tiny one. Cheap, barely better than a toy. I tucked a dash cam under the seat of her car. Motion activated. It caught a conversation 2 days later where she was laughing with Chase about how fast she could turn this around if Logan got annoying. If I got annoying. I smiled when I heard that. Because what they didn't realize was I wasn't getting annoying. I was getting dangerous. Then I found my ace. It was an email, buried in her archive. She didn't delete it, just let it sit there, gathering dust like it didn't matter. It was from her boss. The real one. Not Chase. Ashley, we need to have a discussion about professionalism. Whatever's happening between you and Mr. Donovan is starting to bleed into client perception. If this continues, HR will be involved. There it was. The crack in their shiny little affair. Not only was it unethical, now it was bad for business. And that meant leverage. I printed the email, highlighted it, scanned it twice, backed it up. Then I made 2 anonymous envelopes. One for the HR department of their company, and one for Chase's building's HOA, which had strict rules about visitation frequency and overnight guests not on lease. Just a test. A nudge. The rest? Still loading. See, this wasn't going to be a shout fest in a restaurant, or a crying scene on the porch. This was chess. And I wasn't playing the game. I was building the board. Ashley didn't notice at first. That was the best part. She kept playing the role, texting me updates like we were still working on things, sharing posts online of Sunday brunch with my love, while Chase's shoes were clearly in the background of the photo. I didn't flinch. I even liked the photo, because I was past anger now. I was in strategy mode. It started with Chase. An anonymous tip landed on his company's HR desk with the email printout attached. A week later, he was quietly moved to a new division. Translation: reprimanded, investigated, and now on thin ice. Ashley's reaction was subtle. She came home moody. Didn't talk much. Slammed a drawer or 2. I asked how work was and she replied, fine. That kind of fine where someone's building a fire under their skin and hoping you'll fan it. I didn't. Because this wasn't the confrontation. Not yet. This was the tension before the violin string snaps. Next, I left my browser open, accidentally, on our shared iPad. It was displaying a real estate listing in Arizona. A house, modern and sharp, titled, perfect for a fresh start. Ashley asked about it that night. Are we moving? I shrugged. Just browsing. You never know. She tilted her head. Is this about us? I met her gaze. Calm. Measured. I guess that depends on what you've been up to lately. Her mouth opened, then closed. She smiled. Tight. Don't be dramatic. I didn't argue. But from that moment on, I knew she felt it. The shift. The tension. The way the floor was starting to crack under her heels. Good. Let her wobble. 1 week later, I made dinner. Steak. Her favorite wine. Even lit candles. She walked in and squinted like I was a magician performing without a license. What's the occasion? I smiled. No occasion. Just felt like it. We ate. We talked. I asked her about Chase, by name. Her fork paused midair. You said you two were working late last Friday, I said. Her eyes twitched. Yeah, we were. Why? I handed her a small piece of paper. She opened it. A printed receipt, time-stamped and dated. From a hotel bar. For 2 martinis, a shared appetizer, and a room key charge. I had a friend there, I said. Saw you. Said you looked happy. She stared at it. Then at me. You've been spying on me? No, I said. Just observing. You made it very public. She pushed back from the table. I made a mistake. No, Ashley. You made a series of rehearsed, coordinated choices. A mistake is dropping your phone in the sink. What you did was write a script, cast a lead, and then invite me to the final scene like I was some extra. I didn't mean for it to go this far, she whispered. But it did, I said, leaning forward. And now, so will I. The next morning, I moved out quietly. Just a few bags. I let her wake up to an empty closet on my side, my toothbrush gone, my scent stripped from the pillows. On the dining room table was a copy of our joint bank statement, with my name removed from every account. I'd opened new ones, transferred what I'd earned. What was mine? Alongside it was a flash drive. On it, every photo, every message, the mic recordings, the dash cam footage, the email to HR, and a personal note that simply said, "This isn't revenge. It's documentation, in case you decide to lie later." And I left her the red heels. One, upside down. One, perfectly upright. A visual metaphor even she couldn't pretend not to understand. 3 weeks later, Ashley reached out. She didn't text. She didn't call. She sent me a letter. It wasn't long. Just a few sentences. Something about missing me. About confusion. About how she didn't realize what she had until it was gone. I never responded. She called twice after that. I blocked her number. I heard through a mutual friend that Chase lost his job not long after. Something about client interference. Something about policy violations. They didn't last. Apparently, cheaters who start a fire together usually end up choking on the smoke. I sold the house. Moved into a smaller place near the mountains. Peaceful. Quiet. Just me, a view, and a dog I named Closure. And no, I never got revenge in the traditional sense. I didn't scream. Didn't ruin her career. Didn't torch her reputation. I just left her standing in a life she built on deception, alone, surrounded by ghosts of the man she thought would crumble. And I walked away smiling. Because the truth? She tried to write me out of my own story. So I wrote her out of mine.